Over the next 6 weeks, you will be challenged to make room in your life for what matters most, and you have volunteered to let us follow your stories for encouragement and inspiration. Well, welcome back everyone to Priority Report. I don't think anyone likes to admit, but if we're honest with ourselves, we don't tend to give our friends the time or energies that sometimes they deserve. They're kind of on the back burner, assuming they're just kind of always going to be there. So this week's challenge will help us realize how difficult it is to really nurture those relationships in a God-honoring way. Have a face-to-face conversation with a friend, maybe someone you need to reconnect with, lasting no less than 20 minutes. And without talking about yourself.
That'll be hard.
You let your friend do most of the talking, you listen, and make it about them, not about you.
My initial thought when Michelle told us about this week's challenge is that it would be pretty easy. I do feel like my life is very rich in friendship.
I was excited about this week because I haven't been able to reconnect with a lot of my friends because we have different class periods and stuff. I think what will be hard is finding like when there's a good time for both of us and making it where it doesn't feel weird for them.
I can think of a couple people that I haven't connected with in a while, and it's usually not that hard to get them to talk about themselves.
When I first heard this week's challenge, I was excited because it sort of gave me permission to just chill with a friend for at least 20 minutes. So I was excited about that. And then the next little section about not talking about yourself, it definitely gave me a little prick like, oh, this might be a little more challenging than I originally thought. I like to think I'm a good listener and, that I really care about what people are saying, but in all honesty, like I'm probably thinking about what I'm going to say next about myself, or how whatever they're saying relates to me, or how I can relate to my life to what they're saying. So I think that definitely is going to be a challenge.
Michelle said that we weren't supposed to talk about ourselves in our challenge this week, and I like to talk about myself, I guess, when I'm talking. I always like to relay, my story. So yeah, that might be difficult.
So here we are 1 week later, and the challenge was for you guys to spend time with a friend and basically give them 20 minutes of your time and make it more about them than it is about yourself. Let's hear from you guys. How did that go?
I waited until the last minute, naturally. But I connected with a friend who has been through a lot in the last couple of years. She lost a mother and a father and a husband, and my most challenging part was to not talk about myself.
It was a conscious effort on my part not to talk about myself or interject what I thought was important, and my friend has been suffering from depression. She's really been having a rough time for several years. It wasn't terribly hard, but I did have to concentrate on listening.
Did you find yourself having to stop responding to what she was saying? Force yourself not to interject a question, or?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
How about you guys?
I was able to connect with 3 different people, and they pretty much told me what they were going through, and I kind of led into it with, so what's new with you? What's going on in your life? And, it's kind of interesting the response that you get from different people on that question. The part about connecting with a friend was pretty easy for me because I do that a lot during the day. I get out and I see a lot of different people, and that was pretty easy. Just the main thing was their schedule. I had one guy captive on the way to Tampa in a vehicle with me, so that was a good time to get him. And then another fellow wanted to go to lunch with me, and I let him talk during lunch about what was going on in his life. I tried to let them do all the talking, and I pretty much just listened, which is kind of easy for me because I am a good listener.
Jenny, about you?
I actually got to speak with or reconnect with 4 different people, and it was neat because it was out of no, real planning on my part. It just worked out that way, and it was challenging to, not say a story that I have that relates to what they're talking about, or to bring the focus back on myself or whatever. That was, it was hard to do that. I really enjoyed it. It isn't very often that I allow myself the time to visit with friends or whatever, so getting to, being commanded to do that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot new stuff about my friends. It was nice just listening, not having to come up with advice or, thinking about a funny story to tell, or, or how their story relates to me, how I relate to their story. It was nice just to just listen to them, hear what they have to say for a change.
Did your perspective on this challenge change, like during it or maybe after it, from what you thought it would be like, and then during it and after your response to that?
I thought it would be really weird for the person, but it wasn't.
And was that hard for you to not talk for a while?
No,
No?
because she talks a lot. I thought my week was really interesting with my friend because I learned so much more about her. Well, she was talking a lot, so I found it really easy not to talk about myself. I would put in a couple of words, which would get her on a whole nother topic.
I think it was good to, to hear what they had to say and realize, everybody's got something going on in their life, and it's sometimes there's not somebody around that really cares to hear what it is.
For some reason, I thought that, I might be, looking at my watch, making sure, I lasted the 20 minutes, but I wasn't looking at my watch. It was, nice to listen for a change.
And I feel like I could do that a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And really be a good listener instead of not, wanting to jump in and give my 2 cents worth. Or when we first started doing this series, I thought, I kind of knew what we were going to try to do, but here's our 3rd week. It's hit me. There are changes that I can make and that I think I'm willing to make. What I learned about myself in this week's challenge is that I have a lot of room for growth, and that I have time to do some things that are on my what's most important list, and I can actually make it happen.
While listening to my friends talk, just over and over, it was instilled in me that, you just never know what people are going through. You never know, and in the hi, how are you? How are you doing today? Oh, fine. How are you? That doesn't, penetrate the surface of what's going on in their lives. And, to truly know what people are going through, you do have to just take the time, and listen, take the time, and, more than 5 minutes, to hear what's going on, to see what's going on in their lives.